All right. So good morning, everybody. Welcome back to, I guess, like it's almost week 10. And this week, we're going to look at effective listening skills. So you should be able to see my screen here in front of me, or the slideshow in front of me, sorry. Let me just, there we go. All right. So this week, last week we did better presentations or looking at effective presentations. This week we're going to look at effective listening skills. So listening is the process of receiving or gaining meaning from and responding to spoken and or nonverbal messages. So the idea is listening is the process of kind of receiving and gaining information. It could be spoken or non-verbal messages. So we're going to look at effective listening skills in this class today. We're going to look at what your style is, what your listening position is, and what your listening attitude is. So listening, effective listening skills, listening depends on the subject, the situation, and the context. So what I mean is the subject, kind of like what you're listening about, the situation, what type of situation you're listening in, and the context, what type of kind of situation you are listening in. Noise, when you're listening, noise can definitely interfere. So it could be noise in class, like classmates can be talking. There could be noise in the hallway from, a cleaner or, somebody talking. It could be noise on the street or noise inside or outside our home. So noise can definitely interfere with our listening activities. So there's a really active difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is involuntary, right? You hear sounds, you hear noises. Hearing is accidental, it's involuntary, and it takes no effort. So, again, like if you're lying in bed and you hear a noise at night, or you're sitting on your couch watching TV and you hear a crash outside, that's involuntary. You're not trying to do that. Listening, it takes focus. It's voluntary. It's intentional. You're trying to do that activity. So you might listen for a sound. You might listen for music. Again, like this is a really huge difference here, is that hearing is involuntary and listening takes focus. You have to try to listen, whereas hearing just kind of happens. So there are a few listening styles. You can pretend to listen to something. This is called a pseudo listening, and I do this sometimes. It might be in a movie, or I might be listening to my mother talk or something like that. Pseudo listening is pretending to listen, where physically it looks like you're paying attention, it looks like you're listening, but you're not actually absorbing the information. There is discriminative listening. This is the most common type of listening. Most of you guys would participate in this, in a classroom setting or something like that. You can kind of identify the differences, sounds. You can look at the body language of a person. You're kind of listening to somebody talk. And then there is comprehensive or comprehension listening. This is when you're really paying attention. You're kind of making sense of it all. You're listening to the grammar, the syntax, you're absorbing all of the information that the speaker is giving. Critical or evaluative listening is when you're listening to a person, you're listening to a presentation, and not only are you making sense of it all and listening to grammar and syntax, but you're also evaluating, judging, forming opinions about what is said. So critical listening is arguably the most useful form of listening, where you're absorbing all of that information, but you're also evaluating and judging that information, and you're forming opinions about what is said. Biased listening is definitely not something you guys want to take practice in. Biased listening is where you hear what you want to hear. You misinterpret what's said, and you kind of form your own opinions on it without listening to the facts. Biased listening is, let me get my pen going here, is definitely not a listening style you guys want to adopt. Again, this is where you ignore the facts, you ignore what the person is saying, and you only hear what you want to hear. Appreciative listening is enjoying the message in, well, okay, so like this is a kind of an easy concept here. Appreciative listening commonly happens in a musical presentation, or an appealing presentation, something that you're interested in. This is when you enjoy the message of the presenter. So this commonly happens in a musical message, or like a podcast, or something that you're definitely interested in. This would be called appreciative listening. There's also dialogic or relational listening. So this is a type of listening where you would learn more about others. So you would listen to their dialogue. You would try to relate to the person. They might be from somewhere else, or they might be from a different background, but the idea is you're going to listen to them and relate to that person. And this is a type of listening that is important for the business people in this classroom. So anybody interested in negotiation and sales. So that would be like any students in here interested in marketing or business. This type of listening is really important, because you would listen to someone's dialogue, you would listen about where they're from, what they're interested in, and try to learn more about them. Now, when we listen to somebody, there are a few different listening positions. So these are areas from which we listen, and this is not physically. So I don't mean, across the couch or across the room or anything like that. I just mean these are kind of positions we take when we listen to somebody. There are active and passive listening, critical and empathetic listening, and reductive and expansive listening. So let's take a look at these listening positions. So passive and active listening. Passive listening is kind of, well, I mean, it takes no effort. There's no response needed. You're just kind of sitting there and listening. So the example here is listening to how your spouse is, your partner, your brother, your sister. You're asking how their day at work or school was. You're not providing input. You're just sitting and listening. So you might ask your spouse, your mom, your dad, your brother or sister, how was their day at school? How was their day at work? and this takes no effort. You don't need to respond, you just absorb the information. Active listening takes a little bit more work. You might be listening to them while you're studying, playing a video game, or watching TV. This does take effort and it uses active strategies. So you kind of have to multitask when you're active listening. Again, you might be cooking dinner, you might be cleaning the kitchen, you might be playing a video game, but you have to use strategies to make sure you're listening to that person while you're doing that activity. There are also critical and empathetic listening positions. So a critical listening position would be like you're interviewing somebody, you're asking them questions, you're determining the value of their opinion, you're separating their facts from their own opinion. Critical would be almost like an interview. So you're asking them questions, you're getting their feedback, and you're kind of like judging them based on their answers. Empathetic listening would be more, instead of an interview, it would be more like counseling. You support them. You're providing them with empathy. You're supporting their feelings, and you're going along with them. This is kind of like a counseling position where you're kind of putting yourself in their shoes and helping them or supporting them through an issue. And there are reductive or expansive listening. So reductive listening would be like brainstorming. You're going to reduce a broad topic to a small point. You're looking for results. Sorry, just trying to highlight that word there. You're brainstorming. So reductive listening is you're listening to a broad set of ideas and you're trying to reduce it to a shorter point. Expansive listening is like when you're chatting, you're listening with somebody, you're growing on ideas, you're expanding on ideas, you're listening to somebody, and you're creating a situation of trust. So the stages of listening typically fall into 3 parts: your hearing, filtering, and interpreting. So you hear the word or you hear the phrase, you filter the phrase, and then you interpret the phrase. Or you can think of this like your brain. Your brain hears the phrase, filters that phrase, like it passes through your brain, and then you interpret that phrase. So the filters. There's 3 types of filters we're going to look at. There's the factual filter, the sense-making filter, and the empathetic filter, or empathetic filter, sorry. When you listen to something, you hear the words and your brain tries to filter the facts. So the factual filter looks at the data. Your brain interprets the data and passes it through a factive filter. Are these things true? Do the facts like, have I heard of this before? Have I heard of these facts? Is this true? Then your brain passes it through the sense-making filter. Does this make sense? It would look at previous relationships, previous information in your brain, and it would try to make sense of that information. And then it passes it through the empathetic filter. It would look, besides your facts and besides your data, it would look at your emotions, look at your previous experiences. Have you experienced this before? Has your brain or body experienced this before? And can we relate to this material? So the one of the first stages of listening here is your filters. And again, it goes through the factual or sense-making filter. Is it logical? Does it make sense? Have you seen this before? empathetic, emotionally, have you experienced this relationship or experienced this event before? Some listening filters could be based on your culture, your language, your values, your belief, your attitude, your expectations, and your intentions. So, when you're listening to something, it could be based on your culture. You could be North American. You could be very familiar with football and hockey and baseball, whereas over here in the Middle East, you might be more familiar with cricket or football and handball. Languages, again, if you're from North America, it could be English. If you're from here, it could be Arabic. Values and beliefs could be religious or personal, could be from your family. Your listening filters can definitely influence how you absorb information. So that's kind of it really for today. I mean, pretty quick, straightforward class, talking about listening. So this week, I've marked all of your assignments except the presentations assignment. I'm still waiting on an assignment or two before I mark that. But this week, let me get my pen going here. You guys have an assignment. It's a quiz actually this week. So it's not an assignment. You don't have to do like a PowerPoint or a Word project. You just have to do a quiz. And you can read the information here. Right, so it says complete the D2L effective listening quiz based on better listening. So you guys, when you do that quiz, I highly recommend that you go over the notes and you look at this. So I highly recommend you go over the notes and look at this presentation by Julie and Treasure about better listening. The quiz will be due this Thursday at 11:30 p.m. And if you guys have any questions, you guys can let me know. I'm here for the next little while. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm just going to open your quiz for you now. Any questions? Are you guys all good? Okay, no questions. Perfect. All right, I'll see you guys later. If you have any questions, you can send me an email. Your assignment this week is just a quiz, so it's pretty straightforward. Good luck, everybody. Nice to see you, and have a great